What if I told you there was an empire that ruled for over 600 years, controlled 3 continents, and shaped the world as we know it? Yet today, it no longer exists? How does a superpower that seemed unstoppable just vanish? The Ottoman Empire wasn't just another kingdom in history. It was a force that changed the world. What started as a small tribe in Anatolia grew into one of the most dominant empires ever, ruling over Europe, Asia, and Africa for more than 6 centuries. But here's the real question. How did they do it? How did a small state rise to control millions of people across different cultures, religions, and lands? And perhaps even more puzzling, how did it all come crashing down? This is the story of the Ottoman Empire, a tale of conquest, power, innovation, and eventually, downfall. From their humble beginnings to their legendary victories, from their golden age under Suleiman the Magnificent to their dramatic collapse after World War I, we'll uncover the secrets behind their success and the mistakes that led to their end. So, sit tight, because this is history like you've never heard it before. The story of the Ottoman Empire begins in the late 13th century, in a small region of Anatolia, modern-day Turkey. At the time, the once mighty Byzantine Empire was weakening, and various Turkish tribes were fighting for dominance. Among them was a leader named Osman I, the man who would lay the foundation for one of the most powerful empires in history. Osman I and the early conquests. Osman I was a skilled warrior and strategist. He united a group of Turkish warriors, known as Ghazis, who were determined to expand their lands by fighting against the Byzantines. Through a mix of military strength, smart alliances, and strategic marriages, Osman and his followers began taking over Byzantine territories. His successors, especially Orhan and Murad I, continued this expansion. They captured important cities, including Bursa, which became the first major Ottoman capital. The Ottomans then set their sights on Europe, crossing into the Balkans and establishing a strong presence there. 1453. The fall of Constantinople, a game-changer. One of the most defining moments in world history came in 1453. The Byzantine capital, Constantinople, had stood for over 1,000 years as a symbol of Christian power. But then came a 21-year-old Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed II, later known as Mehmed the Conqueror. With an army of over 80,000 soldiers, massive cannons, some of the largest ever built at the time, and an unbreakable determination, Mehmed launched an attack that would change history. After a brutal 53-day siege, Constantinople fell, and the Ottomans renamed it Istanbul, making it their new capital. This victory was a turning point. The Ottomans now controlled a key trade and military hub between Europe and Asia, making them incredibly powerful. Istanbul became a center of culture, commerce, and governance, setting the stage for the empire's golden age. The expansion continues. With their new capital secured, the Ottomans pushed forward. They took over the Balkans, including Serbia, Greece, and Albania. They expanded into the Middle East, defeating rivals like the Mamluks and Persians. They controlled vital trade routes, making them one of the richest empires of their time. Through military brilliance, a well-organized administration, and tolerance toward different cultures and religions, the Ottoman Empire was no longer just a rising power. It was on its way to becoming an unstoppable force. But if you think this was the peak of their power, think again. Because next came a ruler who would take the empire to unimaginable heights, Suleiman the Magnificent. By the early 16th century, the Ottoman Empire was already a powerful force. But under one ruler, it would reach its absolute peak, a time of military dominance, economic prosperity, and cultural brilliance. That ruler was Suleiman the Magnificent. Who was Suleiman? In 1520, a 26-year-old prince named Suleiman I took the throne. No one knew it at the time, but he would go on to become the longest reigning and most celebrated sultan in Ottoman history, ruling for 46 years. But why was he called the Magnificent? Some say it was because of his massive military victories. Others say it was because he brought law, culture, and architecture to new heights. The truth? It was both. Military expansion. The empire at its largest, Suleiman, was an unstoppable military strategist. Under his command, the empire expanded to its greatest size ever, covering parts of Europe, Africa, and Asia. He conquered Belgrade, 1521, a key fortress in modern-day Serbia. He crushed the Knights of Rhodes, 1522, securing control over the eastern Mediterranean. He defeated the Hungarians at Mohacs, 1526, bringing most of Hungary under Ottoman rule. He laid siege to Vienna, 1529, nearly breaking into Western Europe. At this point, the Ottomans weren't just a regional power. They were a global empire feared by both European monarchs and Middle Eastern rulers. A brilliant leader beyond war. But Suleiman wasn't just a warrior. He was a visionary leader who transformed the Ottoman Empire in other ways. Legal reforms. He created a unified legal system, earning him the title, the lawgiver, in the Muslim world. His laws ensured fairness and justice, making the empire more stable. Cultural renaissance. Under his rule, art, poetry, and architecture flourished. He commissioned the famous architect Mimar Sinan, who built breathtaking mosques and palaces, many of which still stand today. Economic boom, controlling key trade routes between Europe and Asia, made the Ottomans extremely wealthy. Istanbul became one of the world's most important trade and cultural centers. Religious and cultural tolerance, unlike many other empires, the Ottomans allowed Christians, Jews, and Muslims to coexist, as long as they paid a tax. This kept the empire united despite its vast diversity, the peak, and the beginning of the end. For nearly half a century, Suleiman led the Ottoman Empire through its greatest period of power and prosperity. But as with all great empires, the Golden Age couldn't last forever. Suleiman's later years were marked by internal struggles and court intrigues. When he died in 1566, the empire was still mighty, but cracks were starting to form. Weak rulers would follow, corruption would spread, and European powers would start catching up. The empire had reached its peak, but the long, slow decline was about to begin. Secrets behind the empire's success. Unlike many other empires that tried to force one religion or culture, the Ottomans took a different approach. They embraced diversity. The millet system. Different religious groups, Christians, Jews, and Muslims, were allowed to live under their own laws, as long as they remained loyal to the empire. Religious freedom. With a tax, non-Muslims weren't forced to convert, but they had to pay a special tax, jizya. In return, they were allowed to practice their faith freely. A multicultural empire. The Ottomans welcomed talented people from different backgrounds, helping them advance in science, art, and literature. This system kept the empire stable by avoiding unnecessary rebellions and conflicts. The winning formula. So, what made the Ottomans one of the most successful empires in history? A powerful and disciplined military, a booming economy based on trade and commerce, a tolerant and inclusive system that kept people united. But while these strengths helped them rise, they weren't enough to keep the empire from falling. Over time, corruption, weak leadership, and external threats would slowly chip away at their power, leading to the inevitable decline. For centuries, the Ottoman Empire was an unstoppable force. It had conquered vast lands, built an advanced military, and dominated global trade. But as history has shown time and time again, no empire lasts forever. So, what went wrong? How did an empire that once stood at the peak of power slowly start to crumble? The fall didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, painful decline caused by weak leadership, corruption, and failure to adapt. 1. Weak sultans and political instability. The Golden Age under Suleiman the Magnificent had set incredibly high standards. But after his death in 1566, the empire's leadership took a turn for the worse. Incompetent sultans. Many later sultans were lazy, inexperienced, or easily manipulated. Some spent more time in the palace indulging in luxury than ruling the empire. The harem system. Instead of strong leaders being chosen based on merit, the Ottoman harem, the sultan's household, became a place of power struggles and backstabbing. Eunuchs, concubines, and corrupt advisors often influenced who became sultan. Fratricide, killing of brothers. To prevent power struggles, new sultans often executed their own brothers. While this kept rebellions in check, it also meant that many capable leaders never got a chance to rule. As a result, the empire lost its strong leadership. And when the head of an empire is weak, the entire system starts to crumble. 2. Military decline and European advancements. For centuries, the Ottoman army had been one of the best in the world. But by the 17th and 18th centuries, that was no longer the case. The Janissaries became corrupt. The once elite Janissary Corps, which had been the backbone of the Ottoman military, became lazy, undisciplined, and resistant to change. They refused to adopt modern European military techniques, and even revolted against sultans who tried to reform them. European powers became stronger. While the Ottomans were stuck in their old ways, European nations were advancing rapidly. The Renaissance and Industrial Revolution led to better weapons, stronger armies, and superior naval fleets. Major defeats. The empire started losing key battles, such as the Battle of Lepanto, 1571, a crushing naval defeat against European forces. The Siege of Vienna, 1683, a failed attempt to capture Vienna, marking the end of Ottoman expansion into Europe. Wars against Russia and Austria. The Ottomans kept losing land in Eastern Europe, shrinking their empire bit by bit. With a failing military and outdated strategies, the empire was no longer feared. It was falling behind. 3. Economic troubles and losing trade control. The Ottoman economy had once been a powerhouse, thanks to its control over major trade routes. But in the 17th and 18th centuries, that started to change. New trade routes. Hurt the empire, the age of exploration led European nations like Portugal, Spain, and Britain to find new sea routes to Asia. This bypassed Ottoman-controlled land routes, cutting off a major source of income: corruption and heavy taxes. Ottoman officials became more corrupt, stealing from the state and imposing high taxes on their own people. This made life miserable for merchants, farmers, and workers. Inflation and economic collapse. The Ottomans relied on silver and gold coins, but when Europe flooded the market with silver from the Americas, Ottoman currency lost its value, leading to an economic crisis. With less money coming in and more problems to deal with, the empire was financially drained, and a weak economy only made things worse. 4. Internal rebellions and ethnic tensions. The Ottoman Empire was a multicultural empire with many different ethnic and religious groups. At its peak, this diversity was a strength, but as the empire weakened, it became a problem. Rebellions in the Balkans, Christian populations in Serbia, Greece, and Romania started rising up against Ottoman rule. Arab nationalism. In the 19th century, Arab regions of the empire started demanding independence. Lack of unity. Without a strong central government, local rulers and warlords started taking control of different regions, weakening the empire's grip. As nationalism spread, more and more regions broke away, making the Ottoman Empire smaller and weaker over time. The inevitable decline. By the 19th century, the once mighty Ottoman Empire was no longer a global superpower. European nations carved up its territories, its military was outdated, and corruption ran deep. But the final blow was yet to come, and it would arrive in the form of a global war. Because up next, the Ottoman Empire would make one last fatal mistake, joining World War I on the losing side. And that would seal its fate forever. For centuries, the Ottoman Empire had been slowly weakening. Corruption, military failures, and economic troubles had chipped away at its power. But despite these struggles, the empire still stood, until World War I came along. This was the war that would finally bring the Ottoman Empire to its knees. 1. The Ottoman Empire's biggest mistake: entering World War I. By the early 20th century, the Ottoman Empire was no longer the mighty force it once was. European powers referred to it as the sick man of Europe, a once great empire now on the verge of collapse. So when World War I broke out in 1914, the Ottomans had a critical choice: stay out of the war or pick a side. They joined the wrong side. The Ottomans allied with Germany and Austria-Hungary, the Central Powers, believing this would help them regain lost territories. This was a fatal mistake. They ended up fighting against Britain, France, and Russia, three of the world's most powerful nations. The empire simply wasn't strong enough to survive a war on this scale. Second, major defeats and devastating battles. Once the Ottomans entered World War I, they were immediately on the defensive, struggling to hold their empire together. The Gallipoli Campaign, 1915 to 1916. The Ottomans actually won this battle against British and Anzac, Australian and New Zealand forces, thanks to the leadership of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. But it was a rare victory in a war they were otherwise losing. The Middle Eastern Front, the British, with the help of Arab rebels, attacked Ottoman territories in the Middle East. Cities like Baghdad, Jerusalem, and Damascus fell one by one. Arab Revolt, 1916 to 1918, inspired by T.E. Lawrence, Lawrence of Arabia. Arab tribes turned against the Ottomans, accelerating the empire's collapse. Internal problems. At the same time, ethnic and political tensions within the empire grew worse, making it even harder to fight a global war. By 1918, the Ottoman military was exhausted, outnumbered, and completely overwhelmed. The empire was falling apart, and there was no way to stop it. 3. The empire officially falls, 1918 to 1922. 1919. The Treaty of Sèvres. This treaty broke up the Ottoman Empire, stripping away nearly all of its remaining lands. 1920 to 1922. The Turkish War of Independence. A new leader, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, led a revolution to save what was left of Ottoman territory. 1923. The Ottoman Empire is officially replaced by the Republic of Turkey. Ataturk abolished the Ottoman Sultanate, and the empire was no more. After over 600 years, the once mighty Ottoman Empire had finally collapsed, leaving behind a legacy that still shapes the modern world today. The end of an era, but not its influence. Even though the Ottoman Empire no longer exists, its impact on history is undeniable. Istanbul remains one of the most important cities in the world. The empire's legal, architectural, and cultural influences can still be seen today. Modern Turkey, led by Ataturk, was built on the remains of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans may have fallen, but their legacy lives on. For over 600 years, the Ottoman Empire stood as one of the greatest powers in history. It saw incredible military conquests, cultural achievements, and economic dominance. At its peak, it ruled over 3 continents and controlled some of the most important trade routes in the world. But like all great empires, its time eventually came to an end. The rise, built on military strength, strategic leadership, and a booming economy. The Golden Age reached its peak under Suleiman the Magnificent, with advancements in law, art, and architecture. The slow decline, weakened by corruption, military failures, economic struggles, and internal revolts. The final blow. World War I shattered what was left, leading to the fall of the empire in 1923. A legacy that still lives on. Even though the empire is gone, its influence is still felt today. Architectural wonders. From the Hagia Sophia to the Blue Mosque, Ottoman architecture still stands as a symbol of its greatness. Legal and administrative systems. Many laws and governance structures used in the Middle East and Balkans today trace back to Ottoman rule. Cultural influence. The empire left a lasting impact on language, cuisine, music, and traditions across Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. The birth of modern Turkey, led by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, Turkey emerged from the ashes of the Ottoman Empire, shaping the region's future. The lesson from history. The rise and fall of the Ottoman Empire teaches us an important lesson. No empire lasts forever. Even the most powerful nations can decline if they fail to adapt, innovate, and maintain strong leadership. But while the empire itself has disappeared, its legacy remains, reminding us of a time when the Ottomans ruled the world. Call to action. History is full of powerful lessons, and the story of the Ottoman Empire is one of rise, glory, and ultimate decline. But what do you think? Do you believe the empire could have survived longer if it had adapted to modern times? Or was its fall inevitable? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit the like button It really helps the channel grow. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on more epic historical stories like this one.